The course is sponsored by the Foster City Library, and we appreciate their hosting our book launch today. Thank you. If you are inspired by what you hear today and are interested in writing down your own stories, a Beginning Gab 6-week course starts on January 20th. Today's event will include book excerpts from the authors, speakers on the topics of the Gab writing experience, the editorial process, and the self-publishing of our book. And then we are raffling off book copies throughout the presentation, and then there will be a Q&A session. Write your questions or comments on the index card you've been given, and we'll be happy to address those at the end of the program. Books are available for purchase, and many of the authors are here if you'll want a signed copy. Liz Dasa has been our distinguished instructor for many years, the last 3 years online. Please join me in welcoming Liz.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see you all here. And one of the most exciting things for all of us.
Can you step back?
You don't just want my
No,
turtleneck?
a little bit more.
Okay, one of the most exciting things is that we meet each other for the first time. Those of us who are in the group have really just been on Zoom. So anyway, it's great to meet everyone. So I loved talking about Guided Autobiography. It's an enriching and stimulating program, I think, for everyone who participates. It creates community and stimulates people to write about their lives for themselves and for others. So I discovered Gab in 2014. I'd been writing on a variety of subjects myself, doing freelance, and I worked in communications, and Gab gave me a new perspective on writing and on life. I participated in the Gab group in Berkeley, and then decided I wanted to train to lead groups. So James Buren created Gab in the mid-1970s when he was founding dean at the Davis School of Gerontology at USC, and it has since become worldwide, mostly in the United States, but also worldwide. So what is this? First I wanted to say how we got started here. Classes got started here at the Foster City Library in 2018. Jenna Varden was the librarian who saw that this was a good idea. She and I met and we worked together. And in an interview, Jenna was asked what she liked most about libraries, and she said connections. So that's perfect. It's what we are about. So the way that Guided Autobiography works is that it's structured and guided by prompts and in a small community. So the small group environment emphasizes listening, positive feedback, and empathy. So Gab helps people get started on writing about their lives, or prompts you if you kind of got bogged down. And you can be writing for yourself simply, you can be writing for a larger audience, or perhaps just your family, whatever you have chosen. So we have introductory groups on Zoom, which Ruth is leading, and I lead the continuing groups on Zoom, and exploring memories is the key to both groups. So the groups help people improve their writing techniques, but the focus is on retrieving and keeping our life stories and supporting each other. But I think one of the most important things about Gab is that it provides a deadline. You know, it's like when you have company coming, you clean up. Well, when you have a group coming up, you're going to actually do your writing probably. So this book came out of a prompt last spring. I decided, well, it's a good thing. Why don't we write about aging? We haven't written about that yet. And most of us are getting older, it turns out. And people's writing was so wonderful. We all enjoyed each other's work so much. We said, how about a book? And the committee came together, and it went from there to what you see in front of you. So I want to leave you with one quote, because memoir is all over the place. You know, even Prince Harry just wrote one, which you can get next week, I think. Memoir is the luscious weave of inner and outer life. So if you think about it, I think that's a wonderful way to look at our writing. So thank you. Yes. Memoir is a luscious weave of inner and outer life. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Liz. So we're going to begin with our first group of readers. We have Mary, Joyce, and Leslie. Mary?
Am I okay here?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, okay. My purpose in signing up for this writing class was to try and write my family's history, specifically the story of my father's life.
Mary,
Yeah,
can you be project live?
okay, louder. Feel like I have to get closer? No. I was very disappointed when my first practice writing assignment was to write about aging. The theme was how to age with grace. I had absolutely no interest in that topic, and my stomach churned at the thought of trying to write about it. But then I began to wonder, why was I having such a strong reaction to this theme? Just thinking about it made me angry. I gave the assignment some more thought and decided, okay, fine. No one is ever going to read this anyway, so I'm going to take on every slick magazine and tell them exactly how I really feel about their superficial articles that gloss over what it's really like to get old. As much as I dreaded it, I decided I needed to find a way to approach this assignment. Every day I began writing and rewriting whatever came to mind. This went on for a couple of weeks. I was a bit surprised when gradually, instead of racing ahead, pounding out angry words on the keyboard, I was calming down, stopping, walking away from the computer, and taking time to quietly examine the new insights that had arisen. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the driving force behind much of what is written and portrayed about older people is motivated by the writer's own fear of growing old. There was little information in the articles or the majority of the books that I had read that supported me as I faced the challenges of old age. I need more than advice on losing weight or how to look young for as long as possible. I began to realize that it's disillusional to expect or believe that I'll find the positive inspiration I'm looking for by reading other people's opinions and ideas about aging. I know in my heart that it's up to me to face my own fears and find those answers within myself. With new insights gleaned from many hours of reflection and writing, I made the decision to continue to explore new ways and ideas that I can personally integrate into my daily life in order to make it possible for me to continue to live a full and rich life in spite of the limitations of this old body. I have been given the gift of living more years than statistics predict. If you too are given a long life, you can expect daily challenges along with all the goodness that life has to offer. I find that a sense of humor goes a long way in dealing with everyday problems. I'm able to laugh at myself when I wake up, throw off the covers, fully expecting to be able to hop out of bed on strong and vigorous legs. Chuckling as I swing my legs over the side of the bed, I say to myself, oops, the realities of this old body have again taken me by surprise. It has been said, old age is for sissies. I'd like to take that statement a step further and declare old age is for the courageous. I'm grateful for my writing class offered freely by the San Mateo County Library system. Although I don't think of myself as a writer, writing is now a part of my day, enriching all areas of my life. It provides me with a sense of purpose and offers me a means to learn more about myself, my strengths, and my weaknesses. Writing is giving me a deeper, broader understanding of life. As a bonus, I'm also discovering new ways that are helping me to live a full and satisfying and enjoyable life. Thank you for joining us today.
I believe Joyce is in transit in a plane. So we're going to go on to Leslie. Can you?
I'm going to keep going unless you stop me. So again, because I don't know how much you actually heard, this is an abridged version of my piece in the anthology, which is very long. So I hope it's enough to entice you to listen to the whole thing. It's called An Appointment with Myself. In his book, Being a Nothingness, which was very popular in the 1960s, the French existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre tells us, every decision you make now is an appointment with your future self. I don't know if I was being precocious or pretentious when I took those words to heart as a teen in that era, but I'm grateful I did. Those words have resonated through my whole life. They've been a reminder that decisions have consequences. And when those consequences hit an older version of myself, I'd better make damn sure that my older self would appreciate or at least accept them. That when my older self met my younger self, that older self would appreciate or at least accept me. This is translated into doing good, doing right, doing my best. It has meant working with intent so that if something fails, as it often will, I know that I've done everything I possibly could at that moment with the tools I had at hand. Sure, I could have bought Apple and Microsoft earlier. And then there's that car that I got such a good deal on that wound up being in the shop all the time. But those aren't life-changing. They're details. Now, being nearly twice the age Sartre was when he published Being in Nothingness, I find I've become the future self, looking back toward the younger self who made the appointments in the first place. Whether from winning the genetic lottery, sheer dumb luck, or some of those decisions about eating right and staying physically active, I'm approaching the cusp of my 72nd birthday in good health and with a life behind me that has been well lived. Having benefited so much from the wisdom of Sartre's words, I begin to wonder if the Buddhists are also right, that the decisions you make in this life will have consequences in future life. Maybe I shouldn't only think of meeting myself in this life as it draws nearer to its end, but also of meeting myself in a far different future life. Whatever is in store, I remain excited about all the choices left to make, appointments with the future selves in this life or the next. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Now we're going to queue up to Beth.
Sure. Thank you, Leslie, for setting this all up. So now they can hear, correct? But I'm not on the screen. You can. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm not sure because I'm not on my screen. That doesn't mean anything. So my comments are a little bit different. I'm not going to read from anything I have. And I don't even have a document in front of me. I do have a story in this book, but what I'd like to do right now is share with you a little bit about the experience that I went through. So I'm really big, people who have worked with me at Gab know I'm really big about three things. So I'm gonna give you my three kind of high level things that I kind of learned from this class. And first of all, I want to let you know I'm hailing from Boston, and this is a New Jersey sunrise because my husband's from Jersey. If you're not familiar with the Jersey Shore, that's the Jersey Shore. So anyway, I'm the only, I think, East Coast person. So, and I don't know how I got the invite, but so thankful that I got the invitation to participate with this amazing group of people. So there are three things that really you heard highlighted already, a little of those three things. One is the process. So Liz led us through this amazing process of, so often we look forward, setting our goals. And when we look backwards is what, gee, what mistakes did I make? It's not often that you look at your journey and look at those little bends in the road. And that's what happens with Gab. You get that opportunity to really look at your life in with a very unique lens, kind of what you just heard Leslie say. It's kind of, what does my future self think of my past self? And for me, it was very revealing. I think all of us might think we don't have a story to tell. And I can tell you, after listening to everyone's stories and working on this book, you want to read this entire book. The stories are amazing. Every one of them so uniquely different, and they reflect the people that were in the group. So the second thing, so that's process. The second thing are the people. So I'm from New Jersey. I mean, I'm from Staten Island originally, live in Boston now, and I report to California. I work for Apple. That's stock that Leslie forgot to purchase. But I do go out to Cupertino quite a lot. So I'm a little bit familiar with the area, and so I'm very fortunate in that way. But I can tell you that the people that I've met, it's been just wonderful to hear their stories and for them to listen. I mean, truly listen to the stories that you actually do, and to listen with, I guess for me, without being, I guess, subjective. They're really objective about maybe some of the ways that I'm telling the story, and they're really adding to my story, my life story, by really contributing for me, little comments about, you could change this or change that area, or more importantly, allowing me to weep, because sometimes as I told my stories, I'd actually be weeping because it brought up an area that I really hadn't gone to before. So the people are so important. And then a third thing that I think as I think about and reflect back on what I experienced with Gab is trust. I trust these people, and I really feel they've changed my life. So I'm not trying to pitch you on taking the course because, you're going to have this amazing life-changing moment. But I will tell you that the group of people that you will meet are all there for one reason. I think we're all there for discovering a little bit about what our life's been about. And if you want to participate in that way, this is an amazing opportunity. There are not many things that allow you to do that. So those are my comments. It's the process, the people, and the trust that happens as a result of this great class. So thank you, San Mateo Library. Thank you for whoever sent me that wonderful email that got me started with this. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Jenna, for allowing my sound to work that people could hear me.
So we raffled off 2 books, and now we're going to read from Cindy, Cherry, Rosemary, and Lisa. Cindy?
The title of my piece in this book is Aging. It's going to be all right. And this is just the end piece of the total piece. Older people get to make some choices to keep up or take on some new activities. I've decided to walk most every day. On my 63rd birthday, I gave myself the gift of walking. It's pre-decided. I walk in the rain and the heat, regardless of the time constraints or on any given day. I also try to learn new things from time to time. My current exploration has been learning to write Tibetan, which is very interesting and really challenges my pen control. This Gab writing group is another way I stay engaged in my development in hopes to become a better writer. I still think I might have a book in me. The other piece of this conversation is that I don't feel mid-60s. I'm always surprised when someone defers to me or does the small nod and the smile. And I think, oh my God, they think I'm old. How weird it is to feel so different from the chronological age I have. I mean, sometimes my body reassures me that I am as old as my driver's license says, but most of the time I feel much younger. Is that the same for everyone? And yes, aging can be a pain. I don't like being ignored when I'm shopping and some clerk treats you like you don't exist. Going to the doctor can be a main event. Even though I work to stay on top of my health with regular checkups. But I must say, I'm pretty happy to be turning 67 this summer. I still want to surf again and to travel more. For the surfing, I will need to increase my swimming. For traveling, I have a list of places I want to go, but stay open to adding more places to explore. So overall, I think some wonderful upsides to aging, and I prefer to focus on them. I continue to look for more ways to age boldly and keep having fun. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Cherry.
My essay is entitled Aging for Better or for Worse. I tried to picture the downside and the upside of aging from my own perspective. However, due to the time constraints, I will only read excerpts of it, focusing on the upside. We are starting a new year, so let us make it merry and bright. Robert Browning wrote, "Grow old with me. The best is yet to be." Did he have insights that others did not have? Or was he merely romanticizing old age? Little by little, I have learned to accept that things cannot be as they were before, but that with the help of modern medicine and technology and assistive devices, life can be still worth living, even at the sunset of life. I have discovered my self-identity apart from positions, professions, relationships, and how I think the world views me. I can now shed off the shoulds, the coulds, the woulds, what other people think about me and expect from me, and age-old obligations that circumstances may have imposed on me. I am now friends with spontaneity, no longer constrained by strictures and structures. I built around myself before, and I'm able to do things on a whim without feeling guilty about it. I now enjoy the simplicity of life with no more career ladders to climb or need to prove myself. The days of acquisition are over, and it is now time to enjoy what I have in the here and now without waiting for a more appropriate moment to do so. It is liberating to know that the future is no longer tomorrow. It is now, today, and I can seize the blessings of the present moment. I have rediscovered my childlike sense of awe and wonder, which I lost somewhere along the way to adulthood by becoming jaded and cynical. No more thoughts of holding off certain things because the more sophisticated people may consider them childish or senile. I now see things with refreshed eyes, where the old seems to be new once more. It is time to nurture existing relationships or form new ones with the extra time that retirement now affords me. I can enjoy my only grandchild, even spoil her, without the responsibility of disciplining her, leaving that task to her parents where it rightfully belongs. So was Robert Browning up to something when he said those famous words? Is the best that is yet to be waiting for us in old age? We may just find out that it is not in the destination or in the late stages of life that we find the best, but that we are already living part of it during the journey, if we just have the right mindset and wisdom to see it.
Thank you. Rosemary.
A charming encounter. No?
As
Louder?
loud as you can.
Okay. I quickly hung up my laundry and tried to nonchalantly walk by this area. I kept my head facing forward, but took a side-eye glance and noticed a hummingbird perched in the hedge. Maybe there really is a nest. I headed inside to give the hummingbird some time to herself before I explored further. About an hour later, I returned to inspect the area and quickly discovered a hummingbird nest. Oh, this was so exciting. I had always wanted to find a nest in our yard. After living here for decades, I'd finally discovered one close by. This exquisite nest was made from spider's web covered with lichen and secured to branches in the hedge. It was about the size of a walnut. In order to see inside, I needed a step stool. I quickly retrieved one, stepped up, and carefully took a peek. I peered into an extraordinarily delicate world, a newly hatched chick and one off-white jelly bean-sized egg set in a nest lined with what seemed to be some of my blonde hair. I placed my hair from my hairbrush into the garden for the birds. The hatchling looked so fragile with its thin brown skin, closed eyes, and bright orange beak. There were no feathers. The newly hatched chick could barely hold its head up. Even though I was fascinated by this creature, I tried to keep my distance to allow Mama Hummingbird to return and attend to her nestling. I carefully monitored the nest from afar. No sign of Mama Hummingbird for several hours. I began to worry about the little bird getting much needed nourishment. After consideration, I decided to take matters into my own hands by making it some nectar. With a syringe of lukewarm nectar in hand, I walked to the nest, stepped onto a stool, and ever so slightly touched the branch with the nest that was attached to it. This gentle motion served as a signal for the nestling to tip its head up, open its beak, and wait for food to miraculously appear and be placed in its mouth. I took the open beak as my cue to quickly prime my syringe and place one drop of nectar inside its mouth. The drop descended down its little gullet. I'm going to stop here. Have to read the rest to find out.
Lisa, please.
Oh, no, she.
Might want to take your mask.
Yeah. No,
Speak
wait.
loudly.
Yep. So my name is Lisa Wiener, and I too am going to read an excerpt from my essay. And mine is a little different. If I can find it here. It's titled How Family Support Has Carried Me Through My CMT Journey. And you'll understand CMT is the acronym for a disease I have called Charcot-Marie tooth disease. So here we go. In December 1978 at San Mateo, California, Mills Peninsula Hospital, I endured my first major orthopedic operation, bilateral Achilles tendon lengthening surgery. After numerous medical appointments during which orthopedic doctors observed my extremely high arches and unstable high steppage gait, they recommended surgery. So 1 month shy of my 8th birthday, my parents made the difficult decision to have their baby girl undergo a painful surgery and rehabilitation. It would take another 6 years at age 14 to receive my diagnosis of Charcot-Marie tooth disease, a hereditary and progressive motor and sensory neuropathy of the peripheral nerves, when my Stanford orthopedist treating me for scoliosis noticed all the common CMT symptoms. I remember Mills Hospital and the terror I felt when awakened from my drug-induced state. My cries of pain, more like screams, were immediately mollified by another needle in my arm, returning me to sleep. I remember my mom, who's here today, dutifully sitting in a chair at my bedside,
She tried to smile in her way to reassure me that it was going to be okay. Undoubtedly, I was comforted by her presence, but the stabbing, inexplicable pain overwhelmed my body. I couldn't speak and couldn't tell her that I loved her, and that her being there meant everything to me at that moment. Instead, the treating nurse shot me with morphine to dispel the pain, and again I slept. Even though my screams and wails and her concerns of whether they made the right choice for me to have the surgery, my mom never left my side. I'm sure there were times she escaped to use the restroom, eat, sleep, and soothe her anxious mind. However, except for late at night, when I needed my bedpan changed or another morphine injection, I never felt alone. And then I go on, but I'm just going to skip ahead to the very last paragraph. They say that disability and chronic medical conditions affect not only the afflicted, but the entire family. I'm keenly aware of my great fortune being born into a supportive, loving family. My family steps up to the plate each time I develop painful toe and finger infections, need additional bracing or mobility aids, and for every foot, ankle, and hand surgery, despite difficulties and interference into their own lives. My parents, my rocks, are always there, listening and empathizing. However, it's their presence and action in times of crisis and despair that buoy my spirits and encourage my body and mind to recover, rehabilitate, and thrive.
Thank you so much. And now Karen S. will now speak to the editorial process of our book.
Hello, yes, I'm Karen Sid, and okay, sorry, I don't have a terribly loud voice. I'm Karen Sid, really happy to be here today and to meet all these writers that we've been working with online together. So I just wanted to share really briefly about my work on the editorial process and what that has meant to me. I just had a wonderful time working on this project. It was such a joy. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to participate, in particular in assembling the book. One of the parts that I was able to help out a lot with was the editorial portion. So that was reading the pieces, asking questions of the writers for clarity and readability, and making some light edits, and all with the goal of helping each author's story really shine through for the reader. And so I found that a particular joy. And it was really valuable just to be able to engage with the other writers, whether that was, mostly that was just on email, but just to go back and forth and talk with the other writers. That was a really wonderful process for me. I got to know them a little bit better, you guys a little bit better. I got to know the stories a little bit better, and I found that part really rewarding. I just think there is so much beauty in everybody's individual stories. So to be able to work together and highlight that beauty was really a joy for me. I also love the process of working on the team with the other editors and learning how to put a book together. That's something that I had never done before. So that included the mundane decisions of formatting to thinking up titles and subtitles and section headings, putting together the auxiliary parts of the book, even the kind of mundane, like, what is it, in the very front, you know, all those little small details that nobody even reads, but even going through that and making sure it went well, and that was part of it. And also catching typos here and there. We had a lot of fun catching typos. We would put out a new edition and realize, oh, there's a typo. So that was even all of that, that was just a really interesting learning process. So I just learned a lot and had a great experience. And I want to thank Liz for presenting us with this wonderful opportunity, for the editors, for working together to pull this project together, and also everybody else for just entrusting us with your writing so that we could help assemble it. So I had a wonderful time. So thank you.
I just want to add to that she mentioned there was light editing, and that is true. Some of these people had not written anything before they took this course. And then after 8 weeks, they came up with these glorious pieces. So I just want to tell you how accessible it is. That's all. Raffle time. And there will be some for sale, I understand.
Jenna just left a message online. The guy said, sorry, the camera can't keep up with Ruth. It came up.
Yeah, I'll go back. I'm back. All right. Thank you, Karen, for sharing that process with us. And congratulations to our book winners today. Next up to read are Robin and Ruth.
First or last? You're first. Am I in the right place?
Yeah.
Okay. The waterbed. In 1977, when I was 7 months pregnant with my first child, my husband and I bought a waterbed. Now you have to understand that we came from the East Coast and had only moved to California a few months before. On the East Coast, there was a general attitude that people with waterbeds had kinky sex. So we were really putting ourselves out on a limb with our East Coast relatives. The reaction of my Aunt Phil in New Jersey was something like, a waterbed? Mm-hmm. And you could tell she was imagining my husband and me in all sorts of interesting and innovative sexual positions. Truthfully, I liked having that kind of reputation. It turned out having a waterbed was the most wonderful thing we could have done. My husband would get up and make waves. He would make the water roll so that I, in my awkward, huge pregnant state, could roll out of bed. Then when our baby daughter was born, it was so safe to lay her in the bed and know that she could not roll out. It was also warm and comfortable to her. When I had my second daughter, I went into a huge depression. Was that all there is? I had my 2 planned children, but I didn't have a boy, just another girl. I was 30. I was done. Everything I had looked forward to was over, and it was a huge disappointment. I'm gonna skip. Then we were blessed with a son. Our family was complete. A few years later, I was on a spiritual retreat, and at the end of the retreat, I was blessed with oil. Really, I kind of believed all that stuff was a bit of hocus pocus, but I went home that night, and when I awoke in my enfolding waterbed, the room filled with light, and I knew the gift of a powerful love. I like to say that was my reborn experience. Somehow the palpable presence of God telling me he loved me will always be inextricably connected with my warm, enveloping waterbed. We slept on that waterbed for almost 30 years. My adult children would come home to visit and wanted to take naps on it. There was once a Thanksgiving morning when my 18-year-old son, 21 and 24-year-old daughters all climbed into that bed with my husband and me. Our loving nuclear family somehow felt whole in that waterbed. About 22 years ago, my husband said he could no longer get in and out of the bed easily. His joints weren't working as well. He had grown old. There could be no longer a pretense that we were having kinky sex anymore. So regretfully, we sold the waterbed and bought a foam mattress. At our age, this foam mattress doesn't tell the story of lives born and reborn. It tells the stories of bad backs, pulled muscles, and knee replacements. It tells the story of illness, aging, and goodbyes.
Thank you, Robin. A thread of legacy. Cloth has a feel to it. It has warp and weft. The weave that gives it heft and weight and texture. Ah, texture. I love texture. Every fabric has its own story to unfold to become a garment or a quilt or a baby blanket. My mother sewed and repaired holes in pants, missing buttons, broken zippers. Relatives would drop off their damaged garments and Reggie would fix them. The soft drone of her sewing machine, rarely idle, weaves through my earliest memories. I imagine my mother at 3 or 4 years old, watching my grandmother's spinning wheel transform strands of flax into smooth, thin, perfectly even thread. While patiently pedaling and spooling the strands, Grandma would listen to her children recite the school lessons at her feet. It was in high school, however, that I learned sewing. My senior year, I tailored my own winter coat made of brown wool and heavy satin lining. Inside, there were all sorts of secrets that made this coat rival haute couture. Similarly, my daughter Susan found an old sewing book of mine at a young age and taught herself to sew puppets and toy dragons and other fantasy creatures she conjured from my stash of leftover fabrics. Now sewing has become part of her life too. As a director and teacher at an art studio, Susan teaches children to sew and create their own works of art with fabric. It's particularly fulfilling to create something special out of a simple flat piece of fabric. Whether it's fashioning a tailor-fitted garment or crafting a quilt, there's a sense of achievement in this handiwork. Although the passing down of this ancient craft may have been by happenstance, I feel the legacy of bringing works of cloth art into existence is the thread that weaves together the women of this family. To me, this shared skill gives heft and weight and texture to our shared genetic code and is the tie that binds great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, and daughter. Oh, right. Yeah. Is Joyce on the bus though?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Joyce,
I upgraded to an Uber, so I can talk.
are you able to tell us your piece?
No, I can't read it, but
Oh, wait, let me put the audio quickly.
sorry. I can't read the piece. I don't think it's that important if anybody wants to read it, but I would just like to share that, you know, I came across the class right before COVID and I was pretty much in a really hard time and by myself for 10 months. And it really opened up a lot of things for me. It was very good therapy and I've been writing ever since. And I'm really grateful for it. And today is almost like a story. I've been on a train, a plane, then a train, then a bus, and now I'm in my Uber and I'm almost at the boat. But I don't have the key because it's locked in the boat, but I will figure it out. But anyway, that's my story. My story is real life right now. I'm done. This is crazy. I'm at the Golden Gate Bridge though. I'm very close now. I'm excited.
Thank you, Joy. Dawn. Yes. Okay. All right. Dawn was very essential agreement and on the team of the publishing the book. So Dawn is going to talk to us now.
I'm going to talk to you very briefly about the process of publishing. You heard a little bit about it from Karen, Sid, and the key thing that I want to say that we learned, just as everybody in GAB is learning to write about themselves, more about themselves, we learned we can produce a book as well. And so from the idea that Liz presented us to the actual book that you have in your hands, some of you, was about 5 months. And we had a long process, and I just want to highlight the 5 things that we learned in that process. There are a lot of options for self-publishing, but we went with Kindle Direct Publishing, and you can see that there were several things that made it advantageous. The print on demand, so we didn't have to pay anything up front. It was easy to sell it. We get a free ISBN number, and if you want to publish, you'll need an ISBN number. The other thing that I just want to add to these bullet points is that as long as others have the Kindle Direct Publishing on their computers and it's a website, you can share drafts back and forth. And so Karen Kirby and I were the ones who did the actual publishing, and we would be always working together in this process. So that's another benefit of using Kindle Direct Publishing. You heard about the editing. You're going to edit once, twice, and then when you think you're done, you're going to edit again and again. And in fact, we finished one version, and one of our writer friends said, you'll find mistakes again. But what I would recommend, and why our team was so helpful, is to not try to, this is the one thing that you probably don't want to do yourself. You want to have other eyes on a manuscript, if at all possible. Then formatting for publishing is nuanced. It's a little bit different than just simply writing a manuscript. And so we had to learn some of the conventions for publishing. For example, a lot of us, when we were doing our GAD manuscripts, we would have a space between paragraphs. That's not done. So things like that. The exciting thing about formatting, though, is you get a chance to use your creativity. The thing that Karen Sid reminded us often was not to rush the process. For example, choosing the title. We spent a lot of time back and forth deciding on a title, but there's one step we forgot, which was to look on Amazon, since we were going to be publishing on Amazon, to see if there was another book with a similar title. Turns out there are lots of books with similar titles. And thank God we didn't choose one of our earlier versions, which was Looking Back, Moving Forward, because there's another book with that same title. So you want to take your time in each of the steps, but recognize that mistakes will happen. Perfection is not really possible. Even, publishers who have huge teams looking at books often will publish something and then have to make corrections later on. The final thing is that teamwork really is ideal because of all those decisions that you need to make. Being able to bounce ideas off other people. Your team could be your family, could be good friends. In our case, it was a group of authors who came together and said, we'll help to put this book together. And so you really, I think, benefit from not trying to do self-publishing as a self solely. I do want to just mention that the upfront costs. One thing we learned about Amazon is don't get their proof copies because it costs more, takes longer. So we ended up publishing, but not letting anybody know. And we did several versions before we actually sent it live. And so there was the cost of those proof versions. And for more about how to turn your writing into a book, there is an upcoming workshop that is being put on through the library, and you can get more information by going to the website. So I encourage all of you who are thinking about writing a book, you can do it. You can turn it into a book.
Thank you, Dawn. And her stories are amazing. It's just wonderful to see all the different stories. But if you do have a copy of the book, do read Dawn's story. And you've already written down?
Or you already know all the answers? So does anyone have any questions about anything that you've heard today? Nobody?
To any of the
authors or anything about the publishing? Yes.
How many people are in the group?
Well, in the group, I'm not sure, Liz, how many people are in the whole group, but 16 people submitted the writings to the group.
We have a large group of like from 16 to 20, and then we break it down so people know smaller groups that you will read to.
Right.
Yeah, we have a group of maybe 20 people. They don't always all show up, but then we break down into small groups. So we'll have an hour together, and then we'll break into small groups to do the reading of our pieces for that day and listening.
Yes. Luckily, I brought my daughters. Okay, so the class, right, so how long does the whole time last? Well, Liz.
Like how many months?
Well,
Okay.
it's every other week. I think the introductories are 6.
So the introductory class that starts on January 20th is 6 weeks. It meets every other Friday because the continuing class is the alternate Fridays.
Okay.
And the continuing class goes for 8 weeks. But the beginning course is only 6 weeks. and it meets every other Friday starting January 20th.
And it's 2 hours.
Oh, and it's 2 hours, 10:30 to 12:30 on Friday mornings.
On Zoom, obviously.
On Zoom.
Yeah.
And I might add, there's homework, but it's good. Yes,
I was
Lisa.
just gonna add that it's free and open to everybody in the community.
Yes, and if, in case the people online didn't hear that, or some people in the back, it's free, it's offered through the library. And it's free, it's available. I encourage you to do it, it's fun. Any more questions? Great, thank you so much. I think I'm gonna turn the time back over to Ruth.
And there just happens to be someone in this room that's not speaking up, but she joined the class last time and she was working on a biography of her family lineage and genealogy. And she got some great ideas from our course, even though it wasn't specifically geared to an autobiography. So you can use the class for whatever purposes. So as you heard, it is a tremendous opportunity to participate in GAB and very exciting to be part of this book launch. Thanks to all involved, Liz and our authors, and especially the editing team that made this magic happen. Karen K, Karen S, Beth and Dawn. Thanks again to the library who sponsors wonderful programs and activities in our communities, such as this course, and they have both in-person and online courses. I heartily recommend you check the library websites. Again, if you're interested, enrollment is open for the next round of GAB, and you'd be surprised at how easy it is to write down your stories. Thanks to all of you for coming out today. Enjoy the rest of your evening.